Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Murder the Tay Way by Marilyn Levinson, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1. He was clever enough to solve a 15th century murder by studying a portrait in his hospital bed. I asked in my most professional tone. No one answered, of course, since I was alone in my car. Josephine Tey's Inspector Alan Grant of Scotland Yard is who, in her unique and unforgettable novel, The Daughter of Time. A damn good opener for tonight's meeting of the Golden Age of Mystery Book Club, I decided as I exited Mundale University and headed for home. I was in a glorious mood. This morning, my Shakespeare's comedies and Chaucer's tales students surprised me with their insightful observations, leaving me hopeful that literature, as we academics know it, will continue to thrive, even when read on electronic devices. I made a quick mental review of the food supply in my refrigerator and pantry and concluded that I needn't stop for groceries. Home these days was a modest 3-bedroom ranch house in Rysdale, Long Island. I was paying a ridiculously low rent because the house belonged to my boyfriend, Alistair West, the world-famous architect. I'd lived in a state of transition this past year ever since my estranged second husband burned down my house and managed to incinerate himself in the process. Al wanted to take our relationship to the next level. I balked at moving in with him just as I balked at buying a home of my own. If I were being totally honest, I admit the state of transition suited my comfort zone. The few times I'd opted for commitment and permanence had ended badly. Still, as my 49th birthday grew near, some latent nesting instincts kept urging me to settle down. I joined the flow of light traffic traveling east on Northern State Parkway, exiting 20 minutes later. I bypassed downtown Rysdale, which consisted of 3 long blocks of shops and restaurants, making a few turns, and followed Magnolia Lane almost to the dead end. I drew a stop in front of my neighbor's house. "Hello, Felicity," I called through the passenger's window. "Your decorations are awesome." Felicity Roberts looked up from her crouched position. She was setting up a festive Halloween scene in her rock garden. She'd already staked in a goblin and a green-faced witch and placed 3 ghosts of white sheeting in the nearby tree. I felt a twinge of guilt for not having put so much as a pumpkin on my top step, though Halloween was a few weeks away. "Do you think so?" A note of anxiety sounded in Felicity's little girl's voice, making her seem much younger than her 20-something years. "Corinne claims I make too much of Halloween. She says I'm not a kid anymore." "But the children love my Halloween decorations," she said earnestly, as if I sided with her older sister. "Besides, Halloween's my favorite holiday after Christmas." She grinned. "I can't wait to dress up in my vampire's costume and put in my fangs when the kids come by her trick-or-treat." "Sounds like fun," I told her, though inwardly I wondered, and not for the first time, if Felicity was all there. She held down a part-time job at a local children's clothing store and shared the large rambling house with her older sister, a practical, no-nonsense sort of person and vice president of a bank in a neighboring town. Both sisters belonged to the Mystery Book Club. "Bye, see you tonight," I called out. It's a good thing I hadn't driven on, because Felicity chose that moment to run toward the car and lean into the open passenger window. "Do you think every murderer leaves behind evidence?" she whispered, though no one was around to hear us. I smiled at her earnestness and couldn't resist. In a low, conspiratorial tone, I asked, "Did you kill someone and you're worried the police will catch you?" "Of course not." Felicity's blush covered her ears and her neck, making me regret having teased her. "I finished reading The Daughter of Time last night and it got me thinking," she explained, giving her little girl laugh. "I know I'm being silly and it's only a novel, but if Inspector Grant could prove Richard III didn't kill his nephews 500 years after the fact, then it seems to me any murder can be solved." I cleared my throat and felt my professional persona take over. "I believe everything we do leaves a trace of crumbs, so to speak, especially murder and other criminal actions." Tay didn't come up with the theory that Richard was innocent, though her novel certainly popularized it. I smiled. "I'm glad you find the subject intriguing. We'll talk about it at our meeting tonight." Felicity hunched her shoulders. A tremor ran down her skinny frame as she stared at the ground. Lexie, don't be angry, but I can't make the meeting. Something's come up. Oh, I said, embarrassed because she was such an awful liar. It's okay, Felicity. This isn't school. You can miss a meeting if you'd like. But Corinne's coming, she added quickly. I know she's looking forward to seeing everyone tonight. Great. I waited until Felicity returned to her Halloween decorations, then turned into my driveway. Puss, my friend Sylvia's Russian blue Tom I'd adopted after she died, greeted me with a plaintive meow meant to inspire guilt. I fed the nagging feline and then made myself a sandwich for lunch. In the spare bedroom I'd set up as my office, I flipped through my notes for this evening's presentation and realized I didn't need them. The Daughter of Time was one of my all-time favorite mysteries. For once, I had no papers to grade or administrative paperwork to complete for my anal department head. I was free to devote the next few hours to my work in progress. I'd started writing a women's literary novel some years ago. This past summer, I deleted all 220 pages and began a mystery. But facilitating a mystery book club, even having hands-on experience solving real-life murders, hadn't improved my fiction writing skills. I had been stuck on chapter 3 since August, but still I refused to give up. I was intelligent. I had a PhD. If all those writers out there could complete a manuscript and get it published, then I could too. I turned on my laptop. Minutes passed while I stared at the first page of chapter 1. I changed a few words and then changed them back again. The phone rang. It was Al. Hi, Lexie. I'm off to the airport. My limo should be here within the hour. I told you I'd be happy to drive you. It's better this way. You might run into heavy traffic coming home from Kennedy. Plus, you have a meeting tonight. Thoughtful Al, one of the reasons I liked him so much. He paused. I know it's premature, and we needn't act on it as soon as I'm home again. But I'd like you to think about our moving in together. She swallowed. I'll think about it, Al. She heard the smile in his voice when he said, I know we'll be happy, Lexie. His use of the future tense instead of the conditional sent a frisson of anxiety along every nerve in my body. I cared about Al, but after 2 failed marriages, I was far from certain I wanted to share quarters with him or any male for that matter. A doorbell rang at his end, sparing further discussion along these lines. Time to go, he told me a minute later. The limo driver's taken my luggage. Why do they always arrive so early? Now somebody was ringing my doorbell. I suddenly wished Al hadn't taken on the architectural project that would keep him in England for the next 2 months. I'm going to miss you, I admitted. Me too, but we'll talk on Skype, text, and exchange emails. I'll be home before you know it. I sent him a kiss and put down the phone. The doorbell rang more insistently. I flung open the door to find my friend Joy, former FBI agent and current soccer mom, jogging in place. Though the weather was cool for mid-September, Joy wore racing shorts and a sleeveless polo as though it were still July. She slipped into the house, panting and sweaty. What's up? I asked. Want a cup of coffee? She shook her head as she led me into the kitchen where she continued to jog in place. I have 5 minutes. Mrs. Horton leaves at 2 sharp. She'll give me hell if I'm home 1 minute late. I burst out laughing. A tough gal like you, afraid of the little old lady. You're damn straight. I'm afraid, terrified. She'll stop sitting for us and take up with a punctual on-time mommy. My 2 older kids consider her their 3rd grandmother. Brandon stops crying when he hears her voice. Al just called to say goodbye. He's on his way to Kennedy. Joy grinned. You still have that sexy homicide detective to fool around with. A quiver of excitement tinged with guilt shot through me. I've seen Brian Donovan exactly 3 times since I've moved here, if you count the night he got called away before we even touched our main course. I don't consider him relationship material. Says who? Cops make damn good spouses when they set their mind to it. I smiled, picturing her teddy bear of a husband carrying their 6-year-old on his shoulders. Except your Mike went into security work so he could keep normal hours. Joy nodded. Family first is Mike's motto. Did you hear there was another break-in last night? No, what happened? A couple who lives on Thornton, 3 blocks away, came home to find their home burgled. She kept all of her jewelry in a wall safe. Everything was taken. Mike's former partner said it looked like an inside job. I bit my lip. It almost makes me glad I have nothing to steal. On a lighter note, do you have everything you need for the meeting? I think so, including gluten-free cookies from Marge Billings. I pressed my hand to my cheek. I forgot Marge had celiac disease. I'll run to the Stop and Shop. They carry the cookies she likes. Don't bother. I'll whip up a batch. 2 batches, in fact, and keep one for us. Ruthie's supply of gluten-free desserts is running low. I laughed as I saw Joy out, the quintessential homemaker. Who would ever guess that Joy had been a much decorated FBI agent before settling down to have her 3rd offspring? I sat down to reread chapter 1 of my manuscript. I promised myself I'd read for content, but the editor and me took over. I wasn't happy with the phrase in the first sentence, then I decided the entire sentence had to go. I changed more phrases and deleted another sentence. I'd reached page 2 when the phone rang. Lexie? The voice was almost a whisper. Gayle, I'm glad you called. I told my baby sister, embarrassed because we hadn't spoken in months. I was never sure you received the card I sent with my new address and phone number. I did. Lexie? She paused so long I was about to ask what was wrong when her words spilled out in a torrent. Can I come stay with you for a while? Of course, I said automatically, though my stomach twitched with anxiety. What's wrong? You sound upset. I'm in Ohio. I should get to you sometime after 9. You're driving here? Uh-huh. I left Utah 2 days ago. And you're first calling me now? My typical go with the flow sister. I swallowed back my annoyance and asked, do you know how to get to my house? I plotted it out on MapQuest. Lexie, don't tell anyone I'm coming. A chill ran down my body. Who would I tell? I mean, anyone. Promise me, Lexie. I promise, Gayle, but why would anyone call me about you? Instead of answering, she disconnected. When I called back, there was no response, not even a robotic voice instructing me to leave a message. I drove to the supermarket and bought what I remembered were Gayle's favorite foods: bagels and cream cheese, tuna fish salad, stuffed grape leaves, and chocolate-covered nuts. How she used to devour chocolate-covered nuts. All the while, I mulled over what was driving her from the home she loved so much, a 4-room cabin her friend had helped her build 7 years ago in rural Utah. Gayle was 42, 6 years younger than me, and would have been at home among the flower children of the 60s. She'd left college in her freshman year to wander around Europe on God knows what money. She'd ended up living in an ashram in India. When she returned to the US, she moved to California, then to Utah, living a communal life with friends until she built her own home. She made jewelry with semi-precious stones, and these last few years had gotten into pottery. She had various lovers over the years, but no one she'd stayed with for more than 2 years. She was my sister, but we'd seen each other half a dozen times in the past 25 years. Home again, I put away the groceries and tried to call Gayle. No answer. I told myself there was no use in fretting. I'd find out what was happening when she arrived tonight, sometime during my meeting. The thought left me even more unsettled. I returned to my manuscript and spent the rest of the afternoon tweaking chapter 1.